Hello, world. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good following morning on the other side of the world. It is AMA number 9. I am Jonathan Ornstein, your host. Today, very exciting guest for us, Helise Lieberman, very close friend of mine. We're going to get to Hallease in a few minutes. It's a real honor to be able to talk to her and bring her to you guys, although I think many of you know her. I talk to her a lot anyway, but especially exciting to speak to her in this context. I see that my whole staff is tuning in. Hello, everybody. It's like a staff meeting. Hi, Gosha and Ola and Sushkevich. Hi, Fran. Good morning. Good to see everybody. Nice to always see those faces, see people join in. Where are we? As we know, I keep track of time based on the AMAs, and this is AMA number 9. So we have been in lockdown in Poland for 9 weeks, but things are absolutely opening up. Things are opening up here in Poland. Some exciting news about everybody. Oh, sorry, I think I brought Hallease in a little early. Seb, if you want to have Hallease go back and wait, that would be good. There we go. Things starting to open up here in Poland. Very, very exciting news for us. The really big news is that we are opening FRAJDA, our preschool, on Tuesday. So that'll be a really big step for us that we're able to open the preschool. It's the first part of the JCC that we're able to reopen. It won't have all the kids. We're going to have about half the kids because of spacing, and not all the parents feel comfortable sending their kids yet, as it's still just very early into this whole Corona business, although it feels like a lifetime. But we are opening FRAJDA on Tuesday, on the 19th of May. So big news for us. Well, it's interesting that because there's an idea, you can't have all the teachers at once. So we actually have to have less staff, and then some of the teachers are home waiting, and they have to, after a 2-week period of working, they'll have a 2-week period off. So it's kind of interesting, just in case somebody gets sick, that they don't infect the other teachers. So we have sort of half the staff at home waiting for for their time. So they'll do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Hi, Adam from Miami. Good to see you. Boker Tov Neil in Philadelphia. Always good to see everybody. So yeah, that's the news for us. In terms of what's going on in Poland, let's see the update. We're about to enter stage 3 in Poland of the reopening. Stage 1 was like forests and parks and things. Stage 2 was certain shops and malls and things like that. And now stage 3 is, I believe, beginning this weekend, or next Monday, or this weekend, Monday, the 16th, 18th, something like that. Things are starting to open in terms of restaurants. So I think there'll be more space between people, of course, but restaurants are opening not only for takeaway, but actually opening for people to sit. Just shout out, Omer Bachman says hi. Omer, friend from the army. Wow, 20 years ago. Wow, good to see you, Omer. So that's what's going on in terms of Poland, that we're starting. So things will open. You can have more people in religious services starting next week. Hairdressers and beauty salons. The restaurants, I was saying, are open. 2 meter distance between tables. 1 meter if there's wall between the tables. The staff has to wear mask and gloves. Public transport has been going, but you'll have more space, less spacing in the vehicles that are necessary, and they're allowing more people in sports venues. Outdoor cinemas can open. I wasn't aware that there are any outdoor cinemas in Poland, but good to know. If there are any, I'd love to go, actually. Hey, Sam, how's it going in New York? Sam Bodenheimer. Boker Tov, Linda Krar. Hi, Linda, how you doing? So pretty exciting that things are starting to open up. And even the week after, certain elementary schools and university classes will start. So Poland really jumping in and lifting some restrictions, which is a little bit controversial here. So we'll see about that. The statistics this week, we are at 17,000 infected with corona, 869 passed away, and 6,700 have recovered. The country is most of the country is doing well. There's been a huge outbreak in the coal mines, the coal mining area of Poland, which is the southwest, which is in Polish Śląsk, in English Silesia, which used to be Germany. So it's that's the one place where there's a big outbreak. So there are 265 new cases in Poland today. And I remind you that the population of Poland, 38 million. So you can do the math based on where you are and how that seems compared to the, how many new cases there are in the US or wherever you are. 265 new cases, and 209 of them are in Śląsk or in Silesia region. So you see that a lot of it is there. Susan, good to see you. Marcel, always amazing to see you. Barbara Schulhoff, Barbara, old friend from the kibbutz. Chufi, how are you? I think you had a birthday this week. Happy birthday, Barbara. So that's what it looks like in terms of restrictions and things. Poland starting to open up. I can't say that I'm in a hurry to go to restaurants or anything like that, although I do have an unfair advantage of living with a chef. But we've really been eating at home a lot. There's been, let's see, in the more than 2 months that we've been in lockdown, we've only done takeaway once. We brought some pizza home once from Pizza Garden, which many of you know about, have been to us. The guy, actually, it's a very cool pizza place. Guy worked in a place in Brooklyn for 10 years, Grimaldi's under the Brooklyn Bridge, and then came to Poland and opened a pizza place. So very much that Grimaldi's style. Hey, Jeffrey Rolat, back in New York City. Hi, Jeffrey. Marilla with Marcel. Always good. Hey, as I always give special shout out to our hero, cycling hero, Ride for the Living chairman, permanent chairman, Marcel Zielinski. Good to see you, Marcel, and his amazing wife, Marilla. Always great that they're in Montreal, and we miss them terribly. So let me get to some questions that you guys have sent in. More things are opening in Poland. What's the plan for the JCC? I mentioned that a little bit, that as of now, next Tuesday, we're opening FRAJDA and everything else is on hold. Next question is, will 7 at Night be canceled this year? 7 at Night, I'll just remind everybody, is a special event that we do every year, I think for almost maybe nine or so years, I forget. It was the brainchild of good friend Monica Elliott. Monica Elliott works for the JDC, the Joint, one of our founders here at the JCC in Krakow. And Monica said, although Monica's in Warsaw, she is a Krakowian at heart. And she said, look, you have all these amazing synagogues. Krakow, we have 7 pre-war synagogues, the most in anywhere in Europe, in this part of the world. The oldest is from the 15th century, and the youngest, the baby of the Krakow synagogues, is from 1862, just to give you an idea of how old things are. So she said, like places around the world do Night of the Museums, why don't we do Night of the Synagogues? So that was Monica's idea, and for the last 8 or 9 years, we open up all the synagogues right around Shavuot, and we have 6,000, 7,000 people a night, people waiting in line just to get in the synagogues, and we have all different cultural events going on in each different synagogue. It's really, really exciting. I mean, just to see, hundreds of Poles waiting online to get into a synagogue at 1 a.m. is something really remarkable, especially considering that most of them, really the vast majority, aren't Jewish, just curious and want to connect to Jewish culture. So the question, will 7 at Night be canceled this year? And the answer, no, we will not cancel 7 at Night. We'll, of course, do our own take on it, the Corona version of 7 at Night, that we won't really go into the synagogues because they're closed. And we'll have something special that we'll release, and we'll have an online 7 at Night. So good to be able to do that. Hi, Tomer, another friend from Yod Fatah. Good to see you, Tomer Nuchi, my friend Tomer, who is I guess you call it a mounted police officer in London. So stay safe, Tomer, and also an amazing photographer. If any of you need some photography in London, Tomer is the one to do it. Good morning, Slavik Grunberg. The eminent filmmaker Slavik Grunberg joining us. Bobby Rothman. Hi, Bobby. I also, as Aggie did, I saw the photo shoot about your house outside Philadelphia. Beautiful, really exciting to see. So good to see you guys. Any new Netflix recommendations? Let's see. I'm watching, as of now, 2 things on Netflix. One is Hollywood, which is decent, getting a little better. I'm about 5 episodes in. Some cool elements of it is sort of a reimagined post-war 1940s Hollywood that's sort of a bit more progressive than Hollywood was in terms of dealing with interracial stuff and LGBT issues. So that's interesting. I'm liking it, not loving it. I give it about a 6.5 out of 10. And watching the Michael Jordan documentary, which is, to me, called The Last Dance, which is what Phil Jackson, the coach, called that last season when they knew that they were splitting up the team, 97, 98, I guess. Absolutely, to me, unbelievable, incredible watching. So there are 10 episodes of this special about Michael Jordan with just, really incredible access to a lot of different people who he played with, presidents, former presidents talking about Michael Jordan. It's Michael Jordan, so you really get everybody involved. I think few athletes have reached the level of Michael Jordan, certainly in the United States or really around the world. Maybe Muhammad Ali. I think Tiger Woods almost, but not quite. So Michael Jordan, just a huge, huge star, and watching him in these last 8 episodes have been phenomenal. So I think episodes actually 7 and 8, which dropped this week, were the best. Watching him play and all that is one thing. He was so spectacular. Hi, Kuba Wishak. Hi, Kuba in Warsaw. Watching Michael Jordan, seeing him play and all the old footage is one thing, but I think the thing that kind of gets me is that it's been just absolutely fascinating understanding, getting into his mind a little bit and seeing the leadership. So I think that anybody who's curious about leadership, who's in any leadership position or who aims to be or just wants to learn about it, to take a look at the Michael Jordan series, but especially episodes 7 and 8, where he really talks about this idea of how he was hard on his teammates and he knew he was being hard, but he wanted to get the most out of them, and this idea of winning. And for him, it was winning, but I think for any organization could be hitting your goals or just doing whatever your organization, whatever the mission is of the organization. But watching Michael Jordan, who, if you think about it, in most things in the world, you can't really say who's the best businessman or who's the best professor, who's the best, radiologist. It's tough to say. But, you have somebody who the whole world's playing basketball, and you have somebody who absolutely was the best at what he did. So to understand how he got to that level and what really drove him, I think is fascinating for me personally. I find it fascinating insight into just a very, very creative, special mind. You think of athletes, you don't think of them really their mind, but what makes Michael Jordan is not that he's faster or can jump higher. That's part of it. But what makes Michael Jordan is that he was just mentally on a different level than just about anybody else. Just another couple questions. Soon, a few minutes, we're going to get to my good friend Hallease. So next question, did Poland have the presidential elections this weekend? No, because of the corona situation, the elections were delayed. I mean, the elections were supposed to be on Sunday, and I think they delayed them on like Tuesday or Wednesday. So something just really very last minute. The elections will be, I'm not sure when they're going to be. I don't think they've been decided yet. Vicky Warner, hi Vicky, points out that The Last Dance was on ESPN in the US, not on Netflix. Thank you for that, Victoria Warner. Also a big fan of watching The Last Dance. Good morning, Saul in New York. Sebastian, at JCC, we know who the best boss is. Oh, I like that. Good kiss-assy comment, Sebastian. Keep them coming. Good job. So that's about the presidential elections. Do another question about Hallease, Rabbi Shudrik, and I receiving the Bene Merito medal. What's that? 3 of us got a medal a few years ago. Do I ever wear it? I wear it constantly. I walk around the house wearing the medal, as one should. Why not? And then there was another, Benji Lovett, who wrote he can't join. I'm devastated. To me, I don't understand. We should end this whole AMA without Benji, our biggest fan, the Kathy Bates of the JCC, Benji Lovett. who never takes off his Grace JCC green t-shirt. Can everybody get a free t-shirt, he asks, when he's not around? No t-shirts, no free t-shirts, Benji, but thank you for the question. And there you go. So I think that we have some good questions that we're gonna get into with Helise. I am going to now bring Helise in. For those of you who don't know, Helise Lieberman is the director of the Taube Center for Renewal of Jewish Life in Poland Foundation. She was a Hillel director. She was the founding principal of the Lauda Marasha School in Warsaw. She's a consultant to the Rothschild Foundation, the Joint, Westbury Group, Polin Museum. She is an amazing, amazing educator, a leader, a good friend, and just the warmest, most wonderful, nice person that everybody loves. So it is my incredible pleasure to welcome you, Helise Lieberman, to my AMA number 9.
Woo-hoo, Jonathan, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm going to record it and use it when I introduce myself and all future possibilities to reach out through all these Zoom webinars and whatever. So thank you so much for inviting me.
What is more fun than be able to chat with your friends that you normally speak to and just do it with people watching?
I think it's great. In fact, I was going to say, you and I have talked on the phone regularly, checking in on each other, checking in on each other's staffs, how are we doing, making sure that everyone's safe and well and secure. And also talking about how we're going as partner organizations, how we're going to go forward, not only how we're reaching out to the people connected with us now, but how we're going forward and how we're going to do that together. So I'm enjoying having this conversation with you, with others, and looking forward to their input too.
It is my absolute pleasure, Helise. So Helise, let's get into it. You are part of Team Taube. Everybody who knows anything about Poland knows the name of Taube, Tad Taube, Shayna Penn, the leaders, Tad, the visionary leader of the Taube Philanthropies, Taube Family Foundation, Shayna Penn, the executive director, and you are the director of the Taube Center for the Renewal of Jewish Life in Poland. And also, and your main project, or your signature, I think, project is Taube Jewish Heritage Tours Initiatives.
Yes.
TJHT. Yes?
Yes, you got it. Absolutely.
I got it. So maybe to talk a little bit about what the Taube Center does in Poland, and then maybe about TJHT.
Terrific. Well, thank you. The Taube Center was established in 2009 at the initiative of the Taube Foundation for Jewish Life and Culture, Tad and Shayna. The idea was to create an office, a space, a place registered as a Polish entity so that we could actually be one of the, on-site, we could be the on-site, not just representatives, but the conduit to fulfilling the mission of the Taube Philanthropies and Taube Foundation for Jewish Life and Culture, meaning the renewal of, and I think we're now beyond renewal, but the sustaining of and the building of Jewish in Poland. And we started, as I say, in 2009. One of our first projects was to support the publication, and we still do this through the Sepharim book publishing project. We would support authors who wanted to translate or have their work printed and published that dealt with topics, pertinent to Jewish life in Poland, Jewish history, Polish-Jewish relations. So we started with that and opened up. Tad is passionate about his homeland. He's passionate, as you know, about Krakow, his birthplace. And his vision in terms of how to ignite that passion or interest in other people, particularly, those 75–85% of Jewish Americans who have roots in Poland or was once Poland, was to suggest, well, we're going to bring you to my home. We're going to bring you to your home. And so the Taube Center started Taube Jewish Heritage Tours, and we provide an array of tours and educational heritage programs from everything from A to Z, from little children, certainly to older older folks, I have to put myself in that category, but people who either one, want to explore their own family roots. They're finding out things about their families, or they'd like to explore, or they've read a diary, or a grandfather said, oh my goodness, I used to play on the hills on the other side of the Vistula. And people want to see, what is the other side of the Vistula? Where did grandpa play? Of course, people come for memory and pilgrimage. People come to pay honor not only to those they've lost in their families, but certainly communal losses. And they come to explore who and what is Jewish Poland today.
And we feel, we at the JCC in Krakow are honored to work with you guys. We work very, very closely. You're sending groups to us, we send groups to you. It's a very nice symbiotic relationship that we have. So it's, it's always nice to have a good, strong partner in Warsaw. So we're beyond just being supported, we're interconnected in so many different ways besides, being supported by the Taube Foundation. We, have a strong partnership with you guys in terms of the tourism business that we're both in.
Absolutely. And I think one of the main missions of our, these are not always easy journeys, even if, they're parts of the journeys that you want to celebrate. For example, we are missing, we have no tours now, unfortunately, for obvious reasons. And I hope all those out there who are listening to this very fun conversation are all well and safe. But until we can safely receive and people are ready, all of our tour programs are on hold. So that means tours for Hillel Foundation throughout America, group tours, family tours, people who've been planning this for a year in honor of somebody's 90th birthday because she wanted to take her grandchildren to where her father was from. So there's a sense of, let's hope we'll all be dancing at the Jewish Culture Festival next year, and we'll all be riding on the bike ride for life next year. And I'm hoping that some of what we're learning now, there's nothing good about this situation, but what we're all learning now, I think we're going to be able to apply, and if we apply it together, I think we come back a little bit stronger even.
Absolutely. So we're doing, this, of course, the Ride for the Living this year is not going to be what it was, with people coming from all over the world, and we partner with you even on Ride for the Living you offer a tour, a pre-tour before the ride of Warsaw, and that's not happening. But we are doing, I'm not sure if I told you, that we're doing virtual Ride for the Living. So we're going to have a huge online thing all over, very low barrier. You don't have to do, you have like a month to do the 60 miles or less or more, and you can jog it or walk it or ride your bike and walk your dog, and there's all different levels. So you'll be.
I have no more excuses. Now you've got me.
Exactly. This is very, very right. We said, what can we do to make sure that Hallease will do it with us? And we said, virtual Ride for the Living. We got Hallease.
You sign me up. I will do all I need to do. And it's really an amazing program and project. And you really opened up, our tours do, to the world. And you mentioned one thing that there were some interesting questions, which we'll address at some other point, about education, actually. And by the way, they do have a cup of coffee because that was part of the question. We're gonna get
to education. We're gonna get to coffee. We have plenty of time.
Okay, so I just, I won't jump the gun, but I did want to say, and maybe this is a good segue. So far in my Jewish communal educational life, I have worn several hats. I started off as a USY advisor, for those of you who know, United Synagogue Youth. I got pulled into it because somebody got sick and I didn't know what that was when I was a student at Brandeis. Spent a year in working for the Jewish community centers in Northern Europe in the early 80s, when if you think nobody believed there were Jews in Poland, they didn't believe there were Jews in Europe, which is another piece of what we're all working on. I was a Hillel director, and then I was the founding director of the Lauder School.
I was going to ask you, maybe let me just take you a little bit to go in a little more detail there, Hallease, because first of all, you've been, people like me, people, oh, you've been in Poland for a long time, but no, I'm not one of the OGs, right? One of this term.
O as a compliment, okay?
Yeah, no, of course. In the world, listen, the OG is a compliment, no question about it. So, I've been here 18 years, but you were here way before I was, to be honest. So maybe tell us a little bit, although it doesn't seem like it, Helise, you have been here for a while. So do me a favor. Tell me when you got to Poland and how you got to Poland.
So I'm entering my 26th year. So in celebration of 25.
You're almost at chai v'chetzi.
Chai v'chetzi, yes. Well, let's work on it. I came first to Poland in 1991. And I have to credit my being here with the chief rabbi of Poland, Rabbi Michael Shudrick, which I think many of us on this call know who he is.
I have heard of him. I've heard the name.
You've heard the name. Good. I'll send you his bio afterwards. And he basically had called me. I was the Hillel director at Barnard Columbia at the time. And he called me, he said, listen, it's 1991 actually. And he said, I need you to do me a favor because I won't be here. And I'm like, okay. And he said, there's a group of children of the Holocaust who are coming to New York for the first time that any group from Poland could participate in an international conference. So please go and help them make a Shabbat dinner at the Jewish Theological Seminary, which was between Columbia and where I lived. So I have to admit, and I think this is important for my journey, but all of our journeys, I did not have a clue what it meant. Who were the children of the Holocaust? And I walk into a room of the people who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s. And I suddenly discover a whole world of Jewry that was either cut off or I wasn't informed, or we were just discovering after 1989. And so that was my first real introduction. And so Michael said, I said, Michael, so how are you going to thank me? I mean, it was a lovely evening. And I mean, it was just, there was so much joy in the room in spite of the lack of language, but there was a sense of, wow. I'm sure there was a lot of fear and there was a lot of trauma and trepidation, but there was a lot of energy, a very positive energy. So Rabbi Shudrick said, well, the Lauder Foundation is running a camp. Why don't you come for 2 weeks? You're an educator. And that's how it started. So came back a year later to work at camp and with the Pismon a cappella group from Barnard Columbia. When I tell you about our first trip, you're talking about Poland 1992. I think we were braver than we thought. But we realized that bringing Jewish music to places like Wrocław and Gdańsk and Katowice to Krakow was such an invaluable gift. And then I was invited to help found the day school in Warsaw, based on the fact that in 1998, several very, I would say, courageous parents, Jewish parents said, you know what? We need to educate our children because we did not have a Jewish education. We had no access. And they started a kindergarten in someone's apartment. And based on that, we opened, and it was on the Lauder Foundation, and a bunch of amazing Jews and non-Jews, a little, I don't know how to translate, meshugala davar, completely passionate about it, with no thought that we couldn't do it, which was, I think, a positive side of chutzpah. So we opened a primary school in September 1, remarkable date.
Auspicious date. For those of you watching, that was, of course, the beginning of World War II when Germany invaded Poland.
So we opened our doors September 1st, 1994. And I came for 2 years. And many of you who know me know that my math skills are probably not something I should add to my resume. And this is where I live, work, love, laugh, and think a lot.
So talk about those early days at the Lauder School, because to be honest, not many people in their lives found a school or the founding principles of a school. That's pretty unique. But to be the founding principal of the first Jewish school in Poland in a very long time is something that's really, that's historic. So maybe talk a little bit about maybe the challenges, the surprises, what your expectations were of doing that.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's an amazingly good question. I've been thinking about, you could help me write my book. because it's always good to have excellent prompts from a dear friend.
Coffee, Chocolate, and Jewish Education by Helise Lieberman.
There we go. And why all three are essential, you know, it's al-shlosha dvarim, on three things the world is depending. So it's interesting because, okay, so in being completely open, I had never run a school before. My knowledge of Poland was from the entree into a lovely Polish family camp, multi-generational, where everybody was learning together and very open and very positive. And Poland was opening up at the same time, which is why we could take the next step to open a primary school after kindergarten. Kindergarten is a kind of a quiet, at that point, it was a private investment of your child. And that's a lot to invest your child in something that you're not sure about yourself. Jewish education, what does it mean? My Jewishness is still in formation. I mean, mine is too, but you know, what is the school going to offer? What's the school going to demand? And some of those were bigger questions that I think I don't think the formative staff really even understood at that point, if I may, just the enormity of, I mean, we had a huge responsibility.
How did you do it? Was it in terms of just the structure? Was it you started one grade and then you built grade after grade, or you started multiple years?
We started with 18 students in the first grade. We decided that would be good. We started in a rented house in Wilanów, which is a suburb of Warsaw, which used to be at the end of the earth and still, but is now part of the city. We did all the procedures. It had this house, which, oh my God, I think about it now, had to be checked by the fire department and you know, the Board of Health. And I went to the Board of Education and to help register the school. And this woman, and of course I had to go with a translator then, and this lovely woman whose name, I'm sorry, escapes me, but she's one of our angels. I think we had angels all along. She basically said, where's the charter of your school? And I'm like, and she goes, oh, never mind, I'll write it. So there were people all along the way who seemingly understood that this was a very, very important institution, not just for the Jewish community of Poland, but for Warsaw and Poland and in general. And we gathered 18 students, half with Jewish backgrounds, half not. And we started our life in this little villa. You know, when you ask me about firsts, I think that if you ask me what word comes to mind, I think it's the word from the prayer Shehachianu, that we have arrived, that we are blessed to have arrived, because everything was a first. The first challah, the first Hanukkah together with the kids gluing their Chanukiot, the first Sukkot, of course, and the first Pesach. I remember we crammed 95 children, their parents and grandparents in the room for their very first Seder. So
no masks.
No masks. A lot of curiosity, a lot of noise. And I really want to credit not only, of course, the Lauder Foundation and Rabbi Shudrick, but all of those parents that first year who said, you know what, we're going to give it a try. We want this to happen. We want it to be possible. And that's how we started. And now I know the questions I would ask. The good news is I didn't know the questions. I only had the answers. And the answer was open the school on September 1st, 1994.
So maybe there are some questions. Maybe we'll get to these questions. I have a few more of my own, okay. But we do ask people to write in and ask me anything. So I mustn't monopolize. So there were some questions. Alon Benak, what did you discover about Polish education that surprised you when you started working here and created a challenge for Jewish education? Because you had to sort of fit in other words, it's a Jewish school, but of course you're running a Jewish school within the framework of Poland and what the expectations are and children's and parents and from a structural and from the government point of view. So it's not, you can't just do what you want. So how did you, I guess the question really is what was surprising to you about that aspect of running the school? Well,
first of all, for all of us, and obviously my team, we all worked on these structural aspects together, right? You know, what had to be submitted, yes, and you're absolutely right. had to do everything by, to get the imprint, the stamp from the Ministry of Education, we had to follow all of the rules, regulations, and required subjects. And into that framework, we inserted how we wanted to convey Jewish culture, Jewish tradition, song, theater, and so forth. Because we decided it was possible, I think, as I said before, we did not necessarily see these as obstacles, but rather as challenges. And I didn't come with a toolbox, right? I didn't come with, here's your toolbox for school. And I'm, with all due respect to, schools from Beis Yaakov to Schechter to anyone, they have a certain ethos, they have a certain, construct, they have a certain theology and so forth. We had to put this all together to try and be as encompassing as we can and could, understanding for well that this was very, very new for everybody involved. And I hope I succeeded. I had to be very careful not to apply my assumptions or what I knew, for example, from my daughter's school, Beit Rabban in New York. This is one, not New York. This is two, a whole other space. And, finding the right conversation, the right resources, it required a lot of creativity. One thing that I was a little bit frustrated by was the fact that I was coming with a whole lot of new educational methodologies that had already been part of the American system, not just Jewish, for several years. And here there was a rather old school system of frontal, 45 minutes of X. So some of the cultural differences between me as the only American, my daughter too, but and the rest of the teachers who were all from Polish, was a cultural way of relating. They, in the beginning, they stood up when I walked in the room, and I was like, whoa. And now I think they should.
Oh, that's good.
It might be helpful. And of course, there were no cell phones. There's no distractions. I have to say, thank God we started with no distractions like that. So part of it was how to introduce not only the idea of what is the value of Jewish education and what are the Jewish values you want to educate, but also how can we incorporate new methodologies, which would be very beneficial for the students and the teachers.
Yeah, so this kind of leads into the next question, or sort of connected. How is Jewish education different in the US and Poland? From Marciana, our Hillel director here in Krakow, Marciana, resources, methods, targets, challenges. So maybe I would just say, not so much Jewish education, but for me, before my JCC directorial stint, which is 12 years, running on 12 years now, I was teaching the Jewish Studies department at the university. So It wasn't exactly Jewish education per se, but it was a Jewish subject. But not because of the Jewish aspect. To me, what's interesting from my point of view here, that I wanted to just sort of throw out there, was that I was surprised in terms of the education that from the time I was a little kid, I was taught to question why, how. Oh, World War II broke out, but was the situation leading up to that? Why did this happen? Had this not happened, what might have happened, and all of this. And the Jewish Studies department was part of the history department, and I would talk to these students, and I was fascinated by the fact that, well, what was their history exam like? And they'd be like, oh, I was just, they would just memorize dates and the order of this and which general commanded this, and there was not really any why or questioning, and it really was fascinating to me. And I would say that I really think that's a huge societal difference coming, especially not only from the US, but sort of, from a Jewish point of view, that we question everything. And that here in the Polish system, and I'm sure it is changing because Poland is obviously a different country than the one you moved to and the one I moved to, completely different, but still there's a little bit of this idea of the education. They're not taught to question, that sometimes questioning is seen as rude, and you're not, why would you, a professor is a professor, or a teacher or a principal, how dare you question what's being said to you?
I understand perfectly. I think one of the things that I'm glad you reminded me, we started with the fact that questions are part of our curriculum. Part of our culture, school culture. Obviously presented nicely or, in a proper way, but you are encouraged to question, you're encouraged to learn on your own. You're encouraged to use your whole school environment to collect information. We plastered the walls with trilingual signs, Polish, English, and Hebrew. So on the wall, on the door, on the stairs, in the bathroom, in every place was the, trilingual signs. And if you want to know how I learned how to say stairs, schody in Polish, it was because I walked up and down them every day. And I think that in creating this environmental learning space and culture, that was something very new here. And as you say, now things have changed, and connections with around the world and methodologies that people are, pedagogies are changing all the time. And I think because I did not have a academic background, right, in formal education, I think I brought a lot of informal educational approaches, which I think helped us sort of bridge. I mean, now that balance between formal and informal everywhere,
right.
Is something that's thankfully ubiquitous.
Yeah, and in Jewish Poland, something that's not necessarily ongoing now, but we saw a very successful limud, which was 9 or so years of limud, which is obviously the sort of Jewish poster child for an informal education.
Well, it's interesting I'm glad you brought up limud, because when we meet people, I mean, I'm always happy to share. And how do we share? We share because we visit you, or we go to Polin Museum, or we go to the Jewish Historical Institute, or the JCC in Krakow, or the school, or the summer. I mean, that's how we tell the story. But it's one of the things that has changed, and I'm extremely proud to talk about it, is that, for example, in the beginning of the Lauder camp, we looked outside of Poland for people to teach. And now we look inside. And so this generation, I mean, I'm very blessed, I would say, to say, look, there's now a generation, let's say 25 years, of people who've grown up, who've opted in. There are people who've opted out, but opted in, who are taking on either leadership positions, and not just leadership positions, active participant positions. We talk about leadership development, but it's those participants and members who really push us to create and to react and respond and initiate. And I think that I'm really proud that Limud Poland is that Poles are, we are Limud. That the JC, and I'm not at all, listen, I mean, as a fellow citizen of the United States, like you and Rabbi Studzik,
I'm sorry, I'm a citizen of New York, Hallease.
Okay, I would like to be too. I am a citizen of New York because that was my last residence, and
my passport says New York, strangely.
Well, actually, my driver's license does too, but for all those who are concerned, I am born and bred in the Midwest, Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. Just
it's, according to Bob Dylan, of course, the Midwest is its own country, right?
Well, I think it's according to...
It says the country, there's a Bob Dylan line which says the country I come from is called the Midwest.
Well, there you go. But mostly I think it's corroborated by people, like in New York, but that's okay. I'll visit your country one day and you could visit mine. It would be great. But I'm saying that you, me, Michael, and I'm very proud that we were beneficiaries of the Benemérito Award by the Foreign Ministry here. But guess what? We're the old generation. You're right. We're OGs, and I think we should be proud of it. And I'm really proud and honored to stand with our Polish colleagues who, they're running the school.
Yeah. I think we're all in agreement. You, Michael, and I, and people, who are foreigners or former. Now we're all citizens, but people who've come from elsewhere are very mindful. And I think we'd all agree that, the real success for us, and that you saw with the school, that you were the principal, and now there's Polish principal. And I think with Michael sees it with his job, and I see it as well with mine, that moving forward, that we've really done something if the next generation people are local. And I think that will absolutely not be an issue. You have a JCC in Warsaw with a wonderful Polish director. So,
well, and I'm looking.
No doubt, we're in. I think I think we feel that it's not necessary for people to come the way that we did from outside with different experiences. I mean, I also, like you, I didn't really have any, running a JCC, I had zero experience, but
Listen, I think that we're all nachshonim. We're all the one who jumps in first, and that's why I'm very happy to be part of the OG team that you mentioned.
OG Helise. Another question that from Alon, which I think that we both feel very strongly, especially in Poland, about is there a place for non-Jews in Jewish education? If so, how do we explain to our non-Polish Jewish friends? I think this idea of question is really maybe a larger question, which is something that is so normal for us already, but surprising for others, which is the amount of interest, but not only interest of reading a book, but interest in going and doing your PhD and founding festivals and becoming a professor and running a museum, or all of these things that our non-Jewish Polish colleagues are doing. This amount of non-Jewish fascination and desire to be involved among Poles, among Polish non-Jews, is something that is still surprising for people.
I understand it is surprising because I get the question a lot. My team represents Jews and non-Jews, different backgrounds, different religious backgrounds. And for me, it's absolutely normal. The kind of conversations and the kind of ways we challenge each other and assumptions that we make that not in a negative way, but wait. And for me, it's perfectly, I would say, natural. It's a phenomenon. It's of us. It's people together, Jews, non-Jews, who want to build a democratic Poland with the institutions that a democracy deserves, for the Jewish community that it deserves. And so, first of all, I'm really proud and excited and in awe, for example, of Janusz Makuchen, the festival, which is just an outstanding, and unfortunately not this year, but next year we'll celebrate together. And I think people that work on your staff, my staff, Pauline, everywhere, I think that it's a really an amazing sense of connection. It's an amazing sense of commitment, and it's something that we all treasure. I kind of wish everybody got it because I think it's so. I think it's so amazing.
None of the good things that all of us are involved in here, Jewish education, JCCs, tourism, none of it would be possible without one, non-Jewish participation, but in a larger sense, just this environment that we have in Poland, which is really created by non-Jews. If it's safe to walk into a synagogue and comfortable, and you don't have to take off your kippah as you do in many places, and we're not worried, knock on wood, about a lot of these issues, it's not because we are doing a great job of protecting ourselves, it's because there's general acceptance of Jewish life today in Poland by non-Jews.
Well, the Taube Center for 4 years had a program called Midor Lador, from generation to generation. Some members of your staff are part of Yerusha that we have now, professional development program. And it was a group of Jews and non-Jews involved with a focus on Jewish heritage and what does that mean, and tangible, intangible. And one of the participants, actually from Krakow, he's now, I think, doing his PhD in Ukrainian Jewish literature at University of Chicago with our friend Karen Underhill, UIC. And he said, Halise, there are two people involved in this creation, okay? And he drags me by the hand. He shows me a photo that's hanging at the Galicia Jewish Museum. I think it was taken by Chris Schwartz of blessed memory. And he says, it's a picture of a doorway where there's a mezuzah imprint, very clear, like mi Pauline. And he says, okay, at least my job as a non-Jewish Pole is to make sure that I preserve this hole. Your job, Halise, is to help us fill it.
Ooh.
So I think that
drop the mic. Who's that? Andre
Bilak. Yeah.
Andre, I thought so. Yeah, that's good. That's a good one.
Kind of like my reminder of when.
That's a very, very, very good one. So maybe get a little personal here, Halise. You're a huge supporter of the city of Warsaw, where you live.
And I'm much more supportive when I'm talking with people from Krakow. Seriously.
Don't worry, we'll get to Krakow. Halise, tell me, why do you love Warsaw? Because you clearly love Warsaw and you live in a fun neighborhood. But tell me, what is it that you love? What have you seen that really makes you? Because you've been there for a while and you've seen massive change. So what is sort of the change that you've seen, and what makes you love the city?
Well, I think I love the city because it's home. And home is a place, I mean, maybe it's my little spot, but it's home. It's where I work, where I love to work. It's with people I love to work with. And I think what I like most about the city is that it's an incredibly challenging city. When I moved here in 1994, there were vast open spaces between buildings, and most of the buildings were, you know, communist era. Some had somehow survived the war, but 85% of Warsaw was destroyed during World War II. And it's sort of like, I feel like I'm growing with this city, meaning that buildings are spaces of memory or loss are being filled. And on one hand, I have to say I was a little sad when some places get filled, because then I feel like everyone's going to forget that there was something else there. But I think that, you know, Warsaw is known as the Phoenix City. We just keep going, and it's a traumatized city. There are beautiful parks, and there are beautiful places, and there are places that make you go, whose idea of urban renewal is that? And in the middle of it, many of you know, is this great Palace of Science and Culture, which is the iconic now symbol of the city. It was a gift from Stalin in the mid-50s to the People's Republic of Poland, and meticulously built by bricks from all over the country, the destroyed country. And there was a discussion about take it down, leave it up, take it down, leave it up. And this is for another conversation about memory and heritage. But if, you know, it's now become, this is it. It's a kind of, there's a paradox here. You can't see most of the past, but we have a huge past. The present is taking on a whole new patina of, you know, what that might be. And I love my neighborhood. Yeah.
You're getting a lot of love, Halise, from people. Everybody saying hi. Ruth Ellen Gruber writes in, Kino Moskva. You have a lot of, your staff is all chiming in. Everybody, all the Warsaw people woke up when we started to talk about Warsaw.
Well, tell them I love them and thank you.
But so my next question is, why is Krakow better than Warsaw, Halise? No, I'm teasing. Don't answer that, Halise.
Kind of like that question that you can end up in jail or like getting thrown off the Zoom call.
No.
About Krakow, you know, listen, Krakow, you have, Krakow is I love Krakow. And I mean, maybe if we had landed in Krakow, I would be in Krakow. I mean, this is where the land was fertile for this kind of growth. It's the largest Jewish community in the country, and so forth. And it's the capital city. But what I treasure about, it's very funny, every time I come to visit, and I'm coming more often, you have to admit that I come schlepping in and I'm myself at home, like somewhere.
You're always welcome, Halise.
I get off the train and I'm like, oh, that's so nice. They speak Polish here too. No, really, it's like a whole new mindset, because Krakow is a different mindset. It's like, you know, a little bit like New York. We're not New York, but you know, but I love Krakow. I love it for the people that I get to work with. I love it for its vibrancy. I love it for the fact that there are old buildings you can talk about and you can touch them. I love that it confirms that Poland is in Central Europe, because it does, and the fact that it survived the war, the fact that it functions as it does, it reminds everybody that we are in Central Europe. So wow. And you have great kosher ice cream. We
do. Open right now, Halise.
I'm on my way.
You somehow, if the trains start running, or if you have just jump in a car, come down, I'll treat you to some ice cream.
I'm ready.
Halise, you're famous, and when I put it out there, everybody was joking about it. You're famous for liking a few certain things that I want to get into. So you're a famous coffee, I want to say, fanatic. How much coffee, Halise, do you actually drink a day?
So listen, Jonathan, because we're friends.
It's just us.
It's just us, right? I honestly don't, the most I'm allowed to have is 3 cups. Because if I have too much, my staff has to pull me down from the ceiling, and it annoys them. Why is coffee important for me? It's my morning ritual. That's it. That's just what happened. It's like 2 cups of coffee while I'm looking at my emails, while I'm thinking about what the day is going to be, while I'm dreaming up ridiculous mundane posts to put on when there are terrifying things in the world that I don't want to deal with. And so it's sort of been like, okay, while I'm having my coffee, and this isn't coffee, as I said, it's water, but I just wanted to show you the cup. It's my way of waking up, but not only physically, but just like joining the world again. And I think, I mean, I do like people who don't drink coffee. I'm very inclusive.
Thank you. For those of us, as you know, I'm sure, as people like me who give things up, always annoyingly remind everybody. So I was like a big caffeine person, not only coffee, but Coke Zero. I was completely hooked on the quite toxic Coke Zero. And I have to say that one day I just, and I don't sleep well. So I thought, maybe there's a bit of a connection. So 7 or so years ago, I did completely give up caffeine. So I always appreciate when others appreciate coffee, because I feel like I'm, getting a little bit by osmosis.
Well, I mean, the other thing is coffee to me is association with let's go have a cup of coffee, which is just, whether it's coffee or not, but it's kind of like an invitation for a nice conversation. Let's have a cup.
When you're not a coffee drinker and you say to someone, like, it's really strange how you're right, that it's just part of the language. Right. Say to somebody, I'm going to drink sparkling water. That's my thing. I got the Soda Stream. I'm like obsessed with Soda Stream. All it is. Say to you, oh, Helise, we'll meet you in Warsaw. We'll go out for a water. You sound like a lunatic, right? So you have to sort of say the coffee, although it's...
So let's just say this is a kind of, a phrase that, of a way of communication.
Absolutely. Next, Helise fixation, chocolate.
Yes.
You are a chocolate fan. Talk to us. What kind of chocolate do you like? Certain brand, milk, dark? Are you just totally Catholic in your chocolate tastes and love all different types? Talk to us about your chocolate.
Chocolate obsession. I mean, I'm kind of moderate about it too. I mean, I like it and I love it and it makes me happy. My favorite munching chocolate is Trader Joe's semi-sweet chocolate chips. So like when we can travel, I know I got to go to Trader Joe's and God willing, we should all be able to travel and so forth. But it started because I was working at MIT Hillel on Cambridge with my office window to the Charles River. And I was an administrator and I was really frustrated because I came in not wanting to do anything educational. And then, I have just been handed an infusion, thank you. A Polish chocolate, by the way, this is really excellent. So I decided that we were gonna have weekly chocolate tastings and to bring students in. So every week I would go to the store and buy a new chocolate. And this became a kind of a ritual. And then I adopted it personally. I would say I do eat chocolate almost every day. And I prefer sort of like 60-70. I'm not a milk chocolate fan. If it's, oh my God, there's nothing else, okay. White chocolate, I stay away from. I'm sorry.
I go off and on sweets. Usually I'm traveling so much and I feel that, when you're traveling and going to lots of fun places, like I get to go with really good restaurants and stuff that you don't want to sort of deny yourself. So I usually try to do it that I eat sweets and everything when I travel, and then I try not to here in Poland. That's sort of my thing. But I like to sort of deny myself stuff. That's just my own mishigas going on. But I find that I live with an ice cream fanatic.
Yeah, I know.
Who's been off ice cream as well lately, though, which has been strange for me, that she's just very like too healthy, which is like steamed stuff for dinner and stuff, which is odd. But yeah, so I can appreciate your love for chocolate, because Kasha and I, wherever we go, we always have to find the best ice cream and make sure she gets ice cream. So I just have a couple more questions and we're drawing to this is the longest conversation yet, Helise. I hope I'm not keeping you. It's so fun talking to you that, let's keep going. So I have to ask you sort of an observation. If you think about it, if we're writing the history of post-communist Poland from a Jewish perspective, there are a lot of people that have been involved, but there were really two names, I think, that completely jump out in terms of the philanthropic point of view. And those are Tad Toby and Ronald Lauder, and you've really worked very closely with both of them, but for both of them. So I just think that you are sitting in a very interesting position for having worked for really the two, I would say, major architects, from that level. A lot of people doing it on the ground, and Rabbi Shudrick and you, and like Kostek Gebert. There's so many names, but really in terms of the engines that are making all of this go, it's really Tad and Ronald.
Well, I have to say, I am honored. I'm honored having had the opportunity to work for Ronald, and I'm very honored to work for Tad. I think with his passion for Poland per se, and his desire to communicate certain history and issues and so forth, he and Shana have allowed me to step into new shoes in a way that I was ready to, but taken me in new directions, given me the opportunity to really explore what does it mean, what could it mean, because I can never be in someone else's shoes, but working for the Taube Foundation for Jewish Life and Culture, for the philanthropies, has really given me an entree into a really broad world in terms of not only what Taube is doing here, but what Taube does for the San Francisco Bay Area, for both Jewish and non-Jewish institutions. And this commitment and vision has really made it possible for us to say, okay, guys, let's go the next step. How do we open up? How do we draw people into the story? Not just, supporting us is obviously an extraordinary feat, but it's not just supporting us, it's we support you in doing something to not only grow the community here, but to I would say, the ingathering of the exiles of Polish Jews. And this is not, this is not an easy thing to do for obvious reasons. And we really, of course, we respect people, their boundaries, guidelines. I understand that, but we're approaching, 3G and 4G, right? And let's open up some doors for people who, are ready to walk back into a story that might have been theirs. And the Taube Foundation's, investment, not only financially, but thoughtfully, in the Poland Museum, in the JCCs, in the Jewish Culture Festival, the Galicia Jewish Museum, and countless other projects in Poland, makes it possible for each of us to take a piece of this puzzle and say, look, we've got a piece of this puzzle. We can help you. We are not going to tell you you have to put it in, but we're giving you an opportunity to put it in. And I think this year, the pandemic and the impossibility of traveling.
Helise, I think you cut off.
Challenge.
Oh, there we go.
Am I? Okay,
I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you for a second, but now you're good. It might have just been me.
Okay, so I sorry, I can't repeat because, but anyway, what I was saying at the end, or the last few lines, was that all of us who are welcoming we are helping, through Taube to ingather and then to explore, right? And I think one of the pieces that I enjoy most is I've learned that putting the dots together for visitors is very difficult. I was in Auschwitz, now I'm at the JCC. And there's a shift, and I think all of us, you certainly because of what the JCC does and where you are, but us in every encounter, there's a this and but. And I think that one of the opportunities, having all these institutions and all these colleagues, and I really mean it, we have friends. I feel like, people say, who are your friends? I say, well, they're all over Poland. They don't live in my neighborhood, but now they do because we Zoom. But I think that, there are a lot of good outtakes or outcomes, I would say, but one of them is this sense of partnerships that the Taube Foundation has encouraged, and a sense of supporting each other and relying on each other, which is amazing.
Absolutely. No, when I think about, we're obviously, we are as an institution are completely dependent on the support of organizations like Taube Foundation and Louder Foundation, but I think beyond that, and I think how much I feel like I've learned from just spending time with Tad and with Ronald and with Shayna and people that are involved. It's interesting to see those things, that it goes much beyond just sort of grantor grantee relationship, to that you really feel you're around people that have this just intense commitment to the rebirth of Jewish life, and it inspires. I find myself really inspired by being around them.
Absolutely, I'm with you. I would say that it's an honor and a privilege for me to be the director of the Taube Center here, to work with my staff, to learn from Tad and Shayna, and as you say, it's not only financial, it's the passion and the vision and the creativity that they share that makes it all possible. And if you say, so Hallease, so what have you learned after 26 years? That's for another conversation.
Oh, you heard it here first. We're looking at AM8 Part 2 with Helise Lieberman. We'll think about it. But Hallease, we can't finish before I ask you my new finishing question that I asked for everybody starting last week. Everybody starting last week, okay. Everybody starting last week, which means Rabbi Kirshner and you. I need to know, Helise Lieberman, your 3 favorite films of all time.
Okay, my three favorite films of all time. Well, one of them is Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Okay. One. I know. The second one is Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and the third one, oh my God. If I can I call someone from the No calling. No calling. Oh my God. What if I left? I'm trying to remember when I left a movie and said, oh my God, I love that movie. I'm going to have to do some thinking, but I will let you and Sebastian know so that when you go live again, you can say this answer just came in. But I'm understanding that your number 1 favorite is Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It's among the first 3. And if you want, because I can't elaborate on the other 2, my favorite scene, and I think you're gonna like this one. It has to do with style. I don't know if you've seen the movie, right? I have. Okay, I see the face, but never mind. There's a part of the movie, and this has to do with who we are and how our leadership skills or educational skills, when Butch takes Sundance to be interviewed to join the gang. And the guy says, all right, and he throws a rock and he says to Sundance, shoot. And he misses. And Sundance is like the best shot. And the guy's like, oh, forget it. So Sundance says, can I move? And the guy goes, move. I sent off a target. Goes, all right, throws another one, and Sundance moves and he hits it 5 times. So sometimes you gotta use different styles to aim and get to your goal. With that, ladies and gentlemen, those words of wisdom from our very, very good friend, Helise Lieberman. I will pleasure. Thank you for your time, Helise. Thank you for being a friend and a great partner of our institution and a great friend to me personally. And look forward to a time when we'll see each other in person. I mean, and please send love to the team, the green team from the Taube team. And you as well. Thank you so much for this lovely opportunity. It was great. Right back at you. Thank you, Helise. Thank you. And we're going to end that with everybody. So with this, we ran a little late. We are good. Just had so much to talk about with Helise. Bye, everybody. Thank you. See you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.